Allora, la professoressa Julie André, che è professoressa all'Università di Paris-Saclay e soprattutto ricercatrice dell'ITEM, quella istituzione del centro del CNR francese, che insomma rappresenta un modello estremamente interessante e soprattutto istituzionale, che non è poco per lo studio del manoscritto contemporaneo. E lei ci parlerà di Proust, che effettivamente è un altro di quei casi assolutamente paradigmatici per chi si occupa di tutto, ma in particolare anche di filologia d'autore, no? La sua nota refrattarietà all'indagine, al ficcanasare filologico è direttamente proporzionale al numero di edizioni che poi gli sono state dedicate, e molte delle quali rappresentano dei prototipi effettivamente della critica genetica e della filologia d'autore ancora oggi. Julien André ci parlerà in particolare del cahier 46, e quindi le do con piacere la parola.
Thank you very much for your presentation. First of all, I want to thank Paola Italia to have organized this conference and Claudia Bonzi. It's a great pleasure for me to be here, and I apologize for my English, which could be better, I think. So don't hesitate to interrupt me if it's not clear. I will talk about the prototype that we made together with Elena Pierrazzo concerning Proust manuscripts. In fact, it's not a real edition, but a project or a projection about what could be a digital edition of some of Proustian manuscripts. Regarding Proust, we already have an edition of manuscripts, but it's a paper edition, as you can see. The Brepols edition in collaboration with the BNF, which is the French National Library, and directed by Nathalie Mauriac from ITEM and others. The Brepols edition is a critical edition of Proust notebooks, which aims to edit the 75 Proust notebooks. For each notebook, there are two volumes, one with transcription and notes, and one with a facsimile, which means a simple copy of manuscripts. So, what we want to focus on with this prototype is what the paper edition fails to represent. Our purpose was to show the third dimension of the manuscript, I mean time and process of writing in draft. In fact, what we tried to do is to represent not only the manuscript as it appears when you open the notebook in the BNF or on the website Gallica, but also 2 points. The first one is how the draft has been made. So, in other words, how it has been written. And the second is how readers and researchers can use the manuscript, which means how it could be read. Indeed, what the digital edition allows us to do is to represent visually Proust's writing and the process that Proust used to write his notebook. And so, in a certain way, the notion of time becomes obvious, as you will see. In order to realize this prototype, we use the TEI, the Text Encoding Initiative, but I'm not going to talk about the encoding because it was mainly Elena's part, and we already talked about this point at the conference Proust, l'œuvre des manuscrits, which was held in Paris in March 2012. So, what I will emphasize today is how the prototype could contribute to shed some light on Proust's writing and its process. Therefore, in order to build this prototype, I chose an example of Proust's manuscripts, which is typical of Proust's writing in drafts. In other words, this is a passage which contains both narration and notes, and also a passage which is made up of different strata of writing. Okay, it's okay. This passage comes from the notebook numbered 46, the Cahier 46 in French. It's a notebook written in 1914-1915, so 1 year after the publication of Du côté de chez Swann, which was the first volume of À la recherche du temps perdu. This notebook chiefly concerns a new character at this time, Albertine. So it's an important notebook because Proust tries to introduce Albertine in his narration. As you can see on the slide, our passage is starting with a note, this one which is in an orange box. And you can see it better on the next slide. This note is « Je commence ici en face tout ce qui concerne Albertine depuis le chapitre À l'ombre des jeunes filles en fleurs ». So in English, I'm starting here everything that concerns Albertine from the chapter À l'ombre des jeunes filles en fleurs on the facing page. Indeed, in a previous notebook, Proust already wrote the first meeting of the hero with Albertine in Balbec, which will become the novel À l'ombre des jeunes filles en fleurs. And then, in our passage, Proust wants to write the next steps. He wants to introduce Albertine to the Parisian world of the hero. So here, he writes about Albertine's visits to the hero in Paris, which will alternate with episodes concerning society, which will become the novel Le côté de Guermantes. On the slide, which appears, I think, on the slide you can observe that there are headings added on the manuscript. You can see it here. And these headings introduce Albertine's visits into the society episodes. The soirée of Madame de Villeparisis, the description of the Guermantes family, and third, the soirée of the Guermantes princess. That is why this passage of the Cahier 46, the 46th notebook, seems to me a good example of Proust's writing. As you could see on the slides, this passage could be described as a scenario, which means it's both a plan and a narration, and above all, the organization of the space is typically a Proustian one. Narration and marginal addition on the rectos, then rewriting on and a lot of notes on the versos. Therefore, as you can imagine, the difficulty in order to edit this sort of draft is twofold. Firstly, how could it be read? And secondly, how to explain the genesis of writing. I begin so with the first point concerning the question of reading. Editing drafts raises several issues. The first one is probably how to be sure that readers are really able to read manuscripts. Indeed, because of its non-linearity, the Proustian manuscripts seem sometimes very difficult to read. One answer given by editors is to choose the diplomatic edition. For example, this is the choice that Brepold's edition made. Using the page layout, the paper diplomatic edition can give a good idea of actual manuscripts, and thus it usually helps readers to follow the way of writing with a transcription which shows the organization of space on the page. As you can observe here, this is an example of paper diplomatic transcription. It's the first page of our passage, extracted from my PhD thesis, because this notebook has never been edited. And you can see there with a zoom. But sometimes it's not enough, especially if there is not only one double page, but several pages as there are in our passage. Consequently, other means have been sometimes used to try to represent the reading path. For example, it is possible to give numbers to different zones of writing, and it's a mean used by Brepold's edition with what we call diagram. For example, in order to represent the reading path in our passage, we can call A, B, C the different zones of writing. This way, it's easier to read, and readers are able to reread the order of the story. You can see A, B, then on the next page, the B, and then C in this page, C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, and then there is the suite. Just one remark about this reading path. The path we propose to follow here is only the last version written by Proust, but you could also imagine to show the first version, for example. And as you can see, it is useful, but not so easy to read, I think. And now you can note the same reading path in our prototype. So I connect. I chose reading sequence. Where is the mouse? I don't see, so, okay. And as you can notice, zones of writing up. No. Okay.
Sarà da spostare. No? No.
Perhaps it was open just there on first prototype, perhaps. It's better? No. Reading sequence? You know?
Grazie.
Grazie.
Lo scrivo. Ecco. Duplicare.
Perfetto.
Ok.
Però poi quando gira la slide.
It's okay?
Yes, keep going.
It's okay? Okay, you can see it. So, as you can notice, zones of writing appear directly in the order they should be read. That is what we call reading sequence. And the transcription of each zone appears just when you click on the image and shows the way to the readers. So I can show you this one. And thanks to the prototype, we clearly see now that the passage is a draft about several of Albertine's visits in Paris, visits which are number 1, just over there, and on the next page, opening the next page, you can see appear all of the passage. And on this point, we can observe that there is a third one, but it's on the next pages. As you can see, you can see the next page, the last page. This one, and then on the bottom, this one. I will make an additional comment about this reading sequence. We don't include notes and passages which are crossed out in this reading sequence because its goal is to follow the story, the narration of Albertine's visits to the protagonists. So what we call reading sequence could be understood as a first digital representation of this draft. It could be useful if you only want to read the story of the hero and Albertine, but other questions could be raised about the manuscripts. For example, a more genetic one, how these pages could have been written by Proust. Thus, we can also imagine another path through the manuscript, that is what we call the writing path. It's okay? No? Okay, okay. What we call the writing sequence is based on an hypothesis. It's a rebuilding, a reconstitution. As I have previously underlined, the aim here is to give readers one representation of the process of Proust writing. In the same way as we did before for the reading sequence, we can also show the stages on paper with the same systems of zones of writing. Thus, you can follow the path of writing throughout the pages in the chronological order. And obviously, one of the crucial stakes here is to understand the process of writing.
Showing both.
Okay. Well,
It's showing both screens.
it's okay? It's okay. Okay.
It's showing the next screen. Showing the presenter's view. It doesn't matter. Maybe this one?
No, questo.
I'm sorry about the technical problems. It's okay?
No.
No.
Yeah.
That's better before, yes.
I think.
La torniamo a duplica.
Yes.
Is
Yes,
okay?
it's okay. So you can see there one representation of writing sequence with a diagram, and you can follow the number 1, 2, and then read the manuscript in the presumed order that Proust used to write this manuscript. But as you can see, there are some problems with this paper representation. Firstly, it's not so easy to find one's way in the labyrinth of writing. Secondly, there are problems with notes. For example, for the note number 1, which I've quoted, it is difficult to know when this note has been written. And especially, it's difficult to know whether these notes have been written before or after the facing pages. With the knowledge of Proust's habits in his draft, we can suggest that maybe it's after, but in reality, we don't know. The third and last problem of this representation, how shall we represent the action of crossing out, and particularly the cross over the page? For that sort of thing, it's obvious that the digital edition is better because it transforms each virtual stage in action, as you can see on the prototype. So I come back, I hope so, I come back to the prototype. Okay. Sorry.
Alla visione estesa, però non so più dove è finita.
I don't know what
You speak Italian.
I'm sorry, but it's not my computer, so I'm lost.
No, this one.
This way.
Ah, this
no?
one? You
Yeah. That's what I said.
Okay.
No.
Oh, I think it's.
Is that what you want?
Yes, yes, yes. And then I see
Firefox, here.
Firefox.
There.
I see. Okay. Okay, we come back, and I can show you the writing sequence. So I click on the writing sequence. I open the first page. So you can see then the writing sequence in a chronological order. So here we use the yellow color. The digital edition is able to encode the uncertainty. As you can see on this page, the yellow color is used to encode this uncertainty. The stronger the yellow, the greater the uncertainty. Okay. So this point is illustrated by this note. And then you can see the other part of the pages appeared in the chronological order. And then the title. So in the second page, it's the same thing. You can see all of this appears. So afterwards, the other advantage of this edition is that the act of crossing out can also be encoded. So you can understand when each zone has been crossed out. Nevertheless, some problems remain. First, as you have seen, we only represent the stages of writing on each double pages, one page and its facing page, and not at the level of the passage or furthermore at the level of the full notebook. Second, as I have ever mentioned, this writing sequence is only one of the possibilities. To conclude on these points, I will underline just one thing which is very important to us above all. The prototype makes it possible to visualize several paths. So reading sequence and writing sequence have to be understood as examples of what could be represented by the way of digital editions. You could also imagine creating several hypotheses of writing sequences. For example, in order to decide the best one. Therefore, I come back to the prototype. Okay, thank you. The last on the right, yes.
I think we're there.
Yes, okay. That is okay. Okay. No, it's not.
Just go.
Yes, it's not a problem. Okay. I'm sorry about that. Okay. It's not so quick. I think it's okay. Okay. So, therefore, I spoke of representation. The two sequences are only two possibilities, two paths built by editors. We can also imagine a first dimension, which could be the different strata of writing in the other notebooks and perhaps the links between them from the first step to the last one, the printed text. Or we can also imagine to let users or readers free to build themselves their own path in drafts. But what we want to focus on with this prototype is the process of writing. Our aim with the Proust prototype was not to edit a text, but the making of a text. In other terms, the dynamic of the text in the making, the work in progress. So, in a certain way, for that purpose, the digital edition is the best one, which means also that writing in drafts and the digital editions are going together. As we saw, drafts edition raise two issues for today. Firstly, the question of a new reading linked to the internet. This contemporary reading, which is also a digital reading, is described often as discontinued and fragmentary. That is exactly the reading of manuscripts. More specifically, reading one zone and then another one, or following a path which bifurcates and is divided into two paths, in other words, two possibilities. That is exactly the way of reading on the internet, and that is also the way of reading manuscripts. Secondly, the question of the literature as a doing, as an activity, as a production. Indeed, what the modernity lacks in art is not only the work and its perfection, but also the path to the work and how the work has been built. As Starobinsky says, toute œuvre est chemin, each work is a path, in other terms, movement. Therefore, what I want to show in this conclusion is that manuscripts are directly connected to digital edition. So what we have to do is to find the means to allow users to read it. And the Proust prototype is, I hope so, one of the tools, one of these means. I thank you for your attention.
Well, we have a lot of time for questions and discussion now, so if you have any questions. Yes, Ella.
More than a question, there's a couple of things can I show a few things there?
Yeah. I am the technician that did that bit, so from a technical point of view, I just wanted to show a couple of toys. Yes.
See
Do
if
you
I
want
can.
to sit down?
I don't think so. Okay, in this bit, what is also fun is that you... Oh, je ne sais pas pourquoi.
Ici, je pense que ça marche.
Non, je pense pas, c'est pas l'écran.
Duplicare?
Sì, you do the thing that you do.
Duplicare. Proviamo a duplicare perché qui c'è adesso.
Sì, duplica, scusa. Yeah, it's coming. No, c'est ça. Sì,
c'est bon.
In this one, there is a slider here, so you can go actually back in time. The idea is that you can drag back and see the things unveil going back, okay, and go forward. So you can jump a section if you want. And the other thing is that, oops, I didn't want to do that. If you click here, then you can actually drag them away and see what is underneath once they are there. And the last bit is that you can actually hide them and then present them in a different order. So the idea of giving the user the possibility of building their path, there is something, we already attempted in a very easy way to do it with this. There is more research that can be done from an interface perspective, which allows the people to do it in a more intuitive way, but we attempted to do that. That was it. Thank you.
Okay, any real questions? Yes.
Right, wrong button. Button?
No.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I've told you and Elena before, I'm very often referring to that work because it's just amazing. I was wondering, could it be possible to accompany this with documentation for the poorly endowed people like me who don't understand much about literature? And for example, there's always that question when I present this to my students, for example, they say, yeah, but how can they prove it? How do you know that it's in that order, that it crossed out before adding this? And I know what I usually reply is there's a huge amount of work behind that. And the documentation, I don't have it, and Proust, I don't read it. But it would be nice to have that accompaniment, I don't know if you can say that read-through that would explain to people like me, who are not specialists of Proust, how you processed intellectually to build this order of writing and this order of reading, which is a bit more logical for normal humans. And
I should have said that. We had thought about it. So whenever you click on some section, you have some explanation that is displayed over here, which is embedded in the files. It's a very basic one, but we wanted just to show that we could do that. So in the XML files, we have described the sequencing, not for all of that, because this is again a prototype, but when you click, you see that you have some explanation that are there. They're very basic at the moment, but you could add as much as you want in order to create the narrative of that. So we put that on the XML file, and then this is a way for visualizing. It's not perfect, but you're right. That was one of the main concerns we had. So how can we make our decision accountable?
I mean, I think that would be an excellent tool from a didactic point of view.
Yeah.
And when you're learning about Proust, that would be nice to have brilliant people that explain to you how that works. And not only show you how that works, but explain it to you. And it doesn't matter, it's only 3 double pages. The important thing is show to people how that works and people
Yeah, exactly.
how Proust
the
were
moment
thinking.
You say write an edition, write a second edition, because we just tested the opportunity. But yes, it's absolutely fundamental. You're right.
And I think the explanation exists. They are on my PhD thesis, but it's complicated to explain. So it's possible, but sometimes it's complicated. But what there is, as I ever said, this is an hypothesis about what could be the chronological order, but perhaps it would be interesting to have other hypotheses, and then you can compare the different hypotheses and decide the best one. For example, it could be possible, but it's a prototype.
Yeah, but often when you have a digital interface,
Yes.
the tendency is to think, oh, this is digital, so it's exact.
Yeah.
And I mean, I consider it more interesting not to be exact and to
Yes.
be a way to test hypotheses. And so that would be nice to have all that surrounding, didactic surrounding.
Yes, yes, I think. And that's why we use the yellow color to show this aspect of uncertainty of our research. For the reading sequence, it's not the problem, because I think there is no possibilities. But you are right. There is other possibilities. For example, for this note, to put a date on the note, it's quite impossible sometimes.
Yes.
Two questions. One is about the knowledge that you've gained just by trying to sort out the reading sequences and the writing sequences in the manuscript. So what have you learned about the process, Proust's writing process, and the way he revises, extends his ideas, his characters, his narration, etc. So what's the use of the tool for thinking about the process? What does it reveal about the process? No? And then the second question is, it seems to me that there's a lot of work here, an incredible amount of work just to encode this prototype. So, considering that there are 75 notebooks,
Yes.
Is it reasonable to extend this to
No,
the whole corpus?
I don't know if you want to speak about that, but I don't think it's possible to encode like this the 75 notebooks. It's quite impossible, but I think what could be interesting is to have a more extant corpus, one notebook or other support of writing, and then you can perhaps use this way to represent the process of writing, I think. But you are right, it's impossible at the level of all of the Proust manuscripts.
One thing I want to add on that, it's not easy to encode this way because the tools we have are not thought for that. We don't have a single tool, for instance, that allows us to say we draw a zone and transcribe it. We have to do it in two different tools. We use Inkscape for the drawing, copying and pasting the coordinates into the text. What if we build a tool that is supporting us in doing that, as the moment does not exist. It would be kind of a merging inkscape and oxygen, if you think, as a perspective. That would cut at least 30% of the encoding time. The other thing I would like to say is that the encoding is difficult because the manuscript is difficult. It's not because the encoding is difficult because we like it that way. In this case, the drawing of the zone, the understanding, the corrections, is that the manuscript is stratified and we want to represent the layout, and that is hard to do, and you can tell in Word as much as it is in XML. So it is not an easy thing because manuscripts are sort of anarchic in the page. They can appear in any moment. The rotation, for instance, of those bits, if I can click on that, you see the text is rotated there. It's much easier to do it in XML than in Word that you can't, basically. So there is things that, can be said about supporting tools for editors. We never edit it this way, so there's no tools. We can ask for them and see if we can find a way for building something that help us to do this. On the other hand, is the scholarly purpose that we had here that was complex. And that's why I think it's difficult to scale it, because to do this kind of complex analysis of the draft page on several thousands of them, it's difficult in any way. The print edition of those manuscripts is taking 20 years. So it's not that I am doing that this digital is long. It's long anyway, because it's difficult. So we have to also to understand what we want to do. If we think in terms of a project that is funded by the INR or whatever, it is 3 years, there's no way we're going to do that. It's not a 3 years project, ever, or even in print.
Anyway, any other pressing questions? Yes?
Well, it's not really a question, just a consideration. I think that this prototype is really interesting, and it should be even more interesting when applied to another kind of manuscript. And so I'm thinking of Alfieri's manuscript, but a kind of manuscript when an author write down a text and then come over and then correct this text after a long time. Let's say after 10 years, the author goes to this text, correct that, and change it. And so this superimposition between the writing and the writing sequence can allow the user to sort out not only the diachronical evolution of a text, but also the synchronic moments, and so what is the author doing after 10 years on this text. So I think that it's really interesting, and I think that I'd like to talk with you about that, because I need to know something more about this. So thank you.
Okay, I think it could be interesting to, in order to represent the different strata of writing, perhaps you could visualize the strata of writing by using different colors from each period of writing. For the Proust manuscripts, it's not so easy, because we don't have the date of each step or of each strata of writing. Sometimes we know some elements, but generally we don't know, so it's complicated. But I think it could be very interesting.
Okay, any other questions? No? Sure? Okay, someone, you're supposed to respond to all this. Do you want to say something about this? No? You don't have any comments? Sure?
Sure.
Anyone else? No? Okay, yes. Thank you for playing.
Was almost the same question as
Like this? Okay. Almost the same question. How do you formalize the correction which goes from page to page? Do you do it with the same color? There's a way in which we can recognize them? Because it's right that you can come back to the manuscript and correct it, but also you can correct a page and just in a little piece of the text correct a word or something. How can you trace them down?
Yeah. In the prototype, we choose to work with one base, which was zone of writing. So that's the way we work for this prototype. But it's possible to write inside each zone, and so to represent the writing inside the zone, and so encode the crossing out and all the correction inside the zones, each zone. But in the prototype, we don't use this aspect. We work with zones of writing only.
Okay.
It is nevertheless possible also to go from zone to zone.
Okay.
The way the encoding works, it's complicated. I cannot explain without entering into details, but you can represent the corrections and then create a sequence across all the pages and all the notebooks. It's using a different approach of XML, a standoff, if you allow me this language, a standoff markup allows you to build the sequencing even at word level.
Okay.
We haven't created a visualization for it, but it is possible. It is the same mechanism that allow us to display the zone in different orders. It's not the order in which we transcribe, so we could do that easily. Conceptually, is easily done. Practically, for displaying, that's something we have to study. When we worked on this, we decided on purpose to go at one level of complexity. We thought a lot of extending this in two directions, the direction of the word at word level and direction of the notebook. And notebooks too, because we know that Proust worked with 3 or 4 notebooks at a time, so you know you were doing correction on many. We didn't get the funding to do that. We are very unlucky in our project. We want to do it again and so on. But that was the 2 direction, the notebook and the archive level and the word level. Conceptually you can do it. It's that practically we haven't done it yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think it's almost time. So I think we should thank our speakers today. So please just give them a little bit of clap.